It saves somebody's money.
Okay. So, and we still got like 7 minutes to go. But these are my colleagues, and they're going to be talking about the topic for today. So, and while we're waiting for everyone else to show up, I just thought I'd ask, how are you guys liking the class so far? How are you feeling about it?
I'm fine.
Like
Very valuable.
Okay.
I've got more. I wouldn't want to miss a class.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I love hearing that. So, all right, great. Well, and I encourage you as we go through, please, make notes, and if anything comes to mind that you would like us to cover, please let us know. Because we got 2 more classes to go after this one, right? Next week is going to be to move or not to move, and that's going to be a really good session. And then the final session, as many of us as possible will come back and we'll ask any questions that you have remaining. So, it'll be great for you to be here, live on that day. And then, you'll have the recordings to go back to, which is, I think, pretty valuable, right? Have you guys looked at any of the recordings? What'd you think, Anne? Any comments?
I thought it was really,
Well,
it's kind of, it's different, yeah. But it's good to have it to go back to review.
Right. Wonderful, thank you. Okay. So let's give it isn't 12:30 yet. We got to be fair. I'll make sure that everyone who wants to show up has an opportunity. Yeah, I know.
It's hard to come in,
It's almost like the first week of school instead of like almost a semester whole.
Yeah,
It's
crazy.
Is it? Yeah, tonight.
Sunday.
Yeah, I'm doing an outdoor event on Sunday. I really hope they're wrong about the forecast.
Well, is it going to be cold or rainy?
Well, like rainy in the 60s, but it's right now.
Marathon is Sunday.
Oh.
Yeah, it's looking like the morning it's going to rain, and then it's going to be. I'm sorry.
Well, marathon runners like it a little cooler.
Yes, it's better for them when it's not.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, we hope it can live it.
Now we do 4 minutes. It is warm in here. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I keep looking at the calendar and saying, how did that happen? Oh, yeah? Yeah, and also people have a tendency to congregate in the hall, so if we close the door, we can hear better, so that will happen.
Tracy, you can do mini courses next semester?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, actually, I am going to be doing a different thing in the spring. I've been asked to lecture with another lecturer, a guy named Fred Soberman, and we're going to do a course called "The End of the Party: Why Death is Important." Yeah, I know it sounds a little morbid, but hey, Matt, how you doing?
It's coming.
Yes. Well, we're going to take a more philosophical look at the subject of death and attitudes towards death in society, what constitutes a good death. And so we're kind of excited about it because it's a subject people don't like to talk about, but it's a very important subject. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the spring. And I suspect we're going to be reprising this course next fall. because it seems that people really seem to like it and find value in it. And hopefully next fall, it will now that we've pretty much got the technical the technical issues ironed out, it should be easier. And I'm going to find ways to actually place the camera in a better location so it's more centered, and everyone will be able to see the instructor. So aside from that, I think we've got everything pretty much hammered out. So and the sound on last week's session seemed to be good. So, or as good as we can get in this environment. So I feel like we've got something to offer, and and as more people learn about it, we'll have a lot more people signing up. So
That's great. What is the background of the person who's going to be hopefully
Fred, he does a lot. The course that he's been doing the most is Hot Topics, and he's been associated with the Institute for Learning in Retirement for a number of years. And actually, right now he's in India. So he's an interesting guy, and he's got an interesting background. So he's got a few more rings around his trunk than I do. So he's got a little bit different perspective. So it's good. I think he asked me if I wanted to do it, and he showed me some of the materials, and I thought I took a course in college called The Meaning of Death, and it was one of the best classes I ever took, and I really thought it was fascinating. So I'm going to bring some of that attitude back to it, some of the reading materials and some of the ideas, and hopefully folks will show up.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I tried to calling it at the end of the party. I thought people might be a little more inclined to come than if it's like death. Meet the Grim Reaper. So so thank you for asking. My pleasure. Well, welcome to class 4, Getting Organized. Hello, Facebook people. And it is now 12:31. So we're gonna get started. And I'm really thrilled to bring this session to you guys, because I think it's extremely important. On a long enough timeline, let's face it, we all acquire stuff. There's no way around it. You live a while, and you always keep things thinking, I really should hold on to this just in case, right? Does anybody not do that? Okay. So today we're going to talk about what stuff do you really need to keep? What stuff should you maybe consider
Distributing.
Yes, or allowing to go from your life, and how do you facilitate that? How do you protect your privacy? Right? When you're getting rid of stuff, you want to make sure that you don't leave a trail that leads back to you and perhaps could lead to identity theft and that sort of thing. You don't want to have the IRS come after you at some point and not have the documentation necessary to defend yourself, right? All those ideas, are cross our minds as we go through. So we're going to start today with my friend and colleague, Maria-Elena Grant. She is the owner of Awesome Rooms, and she is a downsizing expert. And so she's going to talk about your stuff and giving it some proper perspective.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry. And remember, if you want to speak, ask for the microphone, and I will hand it to you.
Okay. And then you get my stuff.
Yes, I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to just mute this.
As Tracy said, my name is Maria, and I own Awesome Rooms, which does interior decorating, organizing, and staging. But the most important part of my business, what I really like to do, is helping seniors and adult children to downsize. So everyone dreads downsizing, but there really is an upside to it. And today we're going to talk about that. So often my clients say to me, when should I start downsizing? And I say yesterday. It took you a couple of years, maybe even a couple of decades, to accumulate the accumulate treasures that you have. So it's going to take a while to properly distribute them the way you want them to. Do it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this is just a little bit about me and my company, so you don't think there's some crazy lady up here who's just talking nonsense. We've been a registered LLC since 2007, so this is our 10-year anniversary. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned, my core competencies are decorating, organizing, and staging. I was a marketing executive for Lucid Technology. They gave me a wonderful package, and I took the money on back to school to do something that I always wanted to do. And ironically enough, it was Berkeley Community College, where I got a 2-year certificate in interior design. I was named New Jersey State Businesswoman of the Year by the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners. So it was nice to get that little objective recognition. And I helped write some books about how people organize in the business. Very influential. She used to say that I would organize my toys as a child before I knew the alphabet. I would organize them alphabetically. So she recognized this talent, quirk, whatever you want to call it, that I had very early when she helped foster it. So everybody puts all that cloth down inside of it. And why do we do it? It's kind of sad. It's a little emotional. I was recently working with a woman last week who said she felt like she was getting rid of her whole life, but she wasn't. And the big thing to realize is that if you discard the item, or you distribute the item, you're not discarding the memory. The memory is not an item. So your heart is there. And the best way to be efficient and effective at downsizing is to separate your emotion from the item. It is kind of sad and a little emotional because we are going down memory lane and remembering how we acquired things, the good things that we associate with the item. And it seems like we're walking away from our lives. So that's fine. Just acknowledge it. Yeah, we do have emotions about it, but let's go on, okay? And it's a challenging. It's challenging and it's overwhelming. Especially if you lived in the same home for 30, 40 years, you've raised your family there. It's hard to decide what to keep, what to do with the rest, but the really hardest part is how I get started. And that's where we can help you with. We kind of take you out of your comfort zone. To begin with, to put it more in perspective, we have to adjust our expectations. The things that we have probably aren't worth as much as we thought they were. Okay? And kind of talking like garage sale for most of the things, not all of them. The potential buyers who buy your things, they might not appreciate it in the state that it's in. I had a friend who had an antique store and she had a beautiful Victorian settee with the original pastel colored velvet on it, and the wood was in very good condition. It was in her shop for years and nobody even looked at it. Her daughter took it, she painted the wood red, she upholstered it in zebra skin, and it went like in 2 days. Okay, so we have to understand that although we may have taken very good care of the wood and the upholstery and kept everything covered, new potential buyers may give it new life in their own way. And we shouldn't feel bad about that because we're bringing something new to the table. So like I said, they're not going to appreciate it in its current state. They're going to modify it for today. And they're going to break your rules. A lot of us were taught all our life, never paint wood. Okay? I think you should paint wood. Because it's endless possibilities for that. If you just keep it, you're kind of stuck with what it is. So they're not going to paint wood. They're going to break up sets. You can go to an auction now, any auction house, and they will auction off dining room tables and chairs. They can't give the hutches away. People will, the auctioneer will say, I'll give you the hutch. And people say, no, I don't want to take it home. I don't want to throw it away. So they mix and they match. They don't do the whole thing. In a bedroom set, they might not want the end of the night tables. So sets are broken up. And all of us, we value the fact that we have everything is colors match, the same wood, same everything. So we kind of mix it up a bit. We're going to cut down your large pieces to repurpose. Electronics aren't that big anymore. So if you do happen to have a break foot, you know, the next generation, they don't entertain like we do with their stemware and things like that. So they really cut the top off and take the bottom and repurpose it to hold some electronics or something like that. So they're going to cut down the big pieces. It's not a shame. It's not a shame that they're doing this. It's just a different way of looking at it, and it's really going to give new purpose to your items, new appreciation. Okay, what's not popular? These are things that we've probably cherished our whole lives, but the next generation doesn't quite see that the same way. Silver sets. Biggest value is melting them down. Okay, so if you can cash them in, you get money for them in that. Because next generation, or the current generation, wants to be maintenance free. No one wants to polish it. No one serves like that. If you think of a cure, you don't even have a pot of coffee on the table anymore, on the stove. It's an individual thing, so they're not going to go for a fancy service set. Many of us, when we got married, our goal was a complete serving for 12 with all the serving pieces, and family members added on and on to it. There are thrift shops that don't even take them anymore because there's no sale for them. Part of the reason is when you were acquiring China sets like this, a real band or a real sign of prestige or a really special sign is if it had metal trim around it. You paid more for it, you took more care of it. You can't put it in a dishwasher, you can't put it in a microwave. So actually, if you have a China set that doesn't have any metal, it's worth more than one that does. But they're really not worth that much anymore. Big brown pieces, we call it brown. Brown furniture is not very popular now, and you'll have somebody who will cut it up or paint it a different color. Wall units, the big wall units, the three-piece wall units. Again, this is because electronics has changed. They're much smaller. You don't need anything to hold CDs anymore or DVDs because everything's streaming. So you don't need that kind of storage. And what we call matchy-matchy bedroom sets and living room sets where everything matches. So that's what's not so popular. But what is popular? Okay. Vintage electronic games. If you have an Atari or a Nintendo, the first version of Nintendo, or something like that, those are very, very popular. Vinyl record albums and the covers. I remember them being like pieces of artwork. As a matter of fact, I have one of these that I framed and it's hanging in my living room. People come to, oh, I remember that album. You used to read the album notes and everything. That's kind of like a lost art that went away. But people are starting to recognize that. The lyrics are on the album cover. And anything that's indicative of mid-century, which is anything from the 1950s, 1960s. So there's a saying that people don't want what their mother had, but they wanted what their grandmother had. And that's what this is. Anything that's the vintage patterns, the vintage colors like the turquoise and things like that. Those are things that are very popular now. So when you're deciding, when you're thinking to downsize, I know people who save their China and throw out their albums. Try and think of it a little reverse. And part of the reason why we have to understand that the next generation doesn't want our stuff. Nobody wants our stuff. Why is it not valuable? They're not interested in the lifestyle or the memorabilia that we grew up with. If you wanted to give them your Hummel collection, they would like die. That's like the worst thing you could give to them, their Hummel collection. And I remember my mother, she could tell me every single Hummel, what she got for what occasion. It was a job to dust it and everything like that. They're not into precious moments, Hummels, things like that. Their high school, their grade school memorabilia. So if you have boxes of your children's macaroni necklaces or their fingerprints or their report cards, they're not interested in it. or family heirlooms. I had one client who saved her son's baby shoes. And so she finally gave him, said, here, look, these are your very first baby shoes. And he was like, oh, these are so cute. And let me take a picture. He took a picture. And she said, well, here, take them, they're yours. And he said, well, I have a picture. Why do I want the shoes? Okay. So their memories are digital. They're not in actually holding them. So that sometimes happens. I also had a client, she had passed away, and I was working with her daughter to clear out her home. And underneath her bed was her daughter's grade school memorabilia in boxes all taped up. The tape was all yellow. I don't even know when was the last time they opened it up. We opened it up, and her daughter was a little overwhelmed that her mother had saved all this. And she said, you know, this has been an eye-opener for me. My mother didn't have to save all this for me to have a relationship with her, for me to have a memory and a lifetime with her. Now, I don't have to save all my mother's things for me to have a memory of her and to remember my life with her. Like I said, they capture memories differently. The whole life is on their computers and their phones. Okay? And they still love you, and they still love your memories. They just don't love your stuff. So don't hold it against them. When it comes time to downsize, it's really important to get everyone on the same page. And that could be a little tough. A professional organizer can help you with this because this is emotional for everyone. And if you have children or brothers or sisters that are involved, they're going to fall in one or two categories. There's going to be one who's going to hinder you. You can't throw this away. You're just throwing everything out. This is my whole life. And I find with those folks, they're like, you know, store everything in your attic, and it's because it's too important to you. Like, you can't throw away my PAL trophies. It's not, I'm not going to throw them away, but I'm going to give them to you. And you put them in your attic. And then it's like, well, maybe they're not that important. Okay? So you have to get the folks who are holding you back, you have to get them to get some skin in the game. So you try and get them that way. But there would also be people who will help you. They understand this is a time in your life where you really want to simplify things. And that a lot of these things have no value anymore. So let them be your advocate. Let them help you with the people who are trying to hinder you. And the folks who want to help you be your advocate, they generally care about your well-being. And they know that your life needs to be simplified and you need to have this stuff out of your life. So for clearing to last and for your downsizing to really be effective, you have to put yourself first. You can't say, oh, my daughter told me to throw this out. Okay. But you need to have it out of your house. So if she wants you to throw it out, like I said, give it to her and see if she really thinks it's that valuable once it's in her possession. I feel you have to do this for your soul. Like we said, everybody puts off downsizing because it's emotional. It takes us out of our comfort zone. I like to make the analogy that it's like a personal trainer. We all know we have to go to the gym. We all know we shouldn't eat as much as we do. But sometimes you need a personal trainer to get you out of your comfort zone, to get you going. Plus, personal trainers know what exercise is good for you. Professional organizers, they know methods to do it, to help you get it done. And you don't want to do this in crisis mode. I had a client for 9 months that said, I'm going to call you and we're going to start. Sometimes she would call me up and say, I'm going to call you next month and we're going to get started. It's like, okay. Then one day I get a call from her husband. She had a series of strokes. She wasn't going to be able to come back to the house. We had to go through everything and downsize for her in the crisis mode. You don't want to do that. You want to do it. If there's something that you truly want to give to someone, you're able to give it to them and explain why it's important for them to have it. And you also don't want to be a burden to your family. I'll work with clients who say, I have my cemetery plot already bought. I have my pre-needs arrangements. I have my will, I have everything done because I don't want to be a burden to my family. You know, that's the easy part. That's the really easy part. It's when everything is all done and you have adult children who are working and have families, but still now have to deal with all these possessions. And it takes them months and months, sometimes a year, when they're doing it on the weekends. It's very difficult to do. You want to do it to achieve simplicity. You want your life to be simple. Why should you be moving all these big pots and pans around or moving things to get to the things that you really need and that you're still going to use? It's easier to clean your house. And the traditional ways that we've been doing this, trying to organize, haven't always worked. If you find that you're reorganizing, like, well, I'm reorganizing my closet, I'm reorganizing my pantry, then you never really organized to begin with. All you did was straighten up. If you're truly organized, you stay organized and you don't have to do it again. And it's not something that you do. Downsizing and being organized, it's a way of life. And if you're trying to do everything, people say to me, I'm just juggling too many things. You're not juggling anything. Everything is fog. It's hard to do alone. It's hard because it'd be very difficult and very time consuming. There are some folks who come up with a method, well, you should do 10 minutes a day. Well, that lasts like 2 days. And then you don't do it anymore. You need guidance. You need a process. And can teach you proven methods to help you go through it very quickly. I think one of the value adds that a professional organizer has, if you see immediate results. If you do it 10 minutes a day, it's not going to happen. And so we can teach these methods to keep you organized. I like to do a marathon or schedule sessions right in a row, like maybe 3 hours on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, instead of I'm going to come every other week. That doesn't really work. Really have to get into it and start chipping away at it very quickly. And we can seamlessly move you through the downsizing process so it's not so emotional and overwhelming. I always say, the things you have in your house, there might be no order to how you acquired it. You just kind of bought it here and there. But there definitely is a science and an order to how you discard it. It's so worth it. So worth it. Like we said, don't do this in crisis mode. You can better manage your living environment. Why do you want to be? I one time who said to me, I feel like my possessions own me instead of me owning my possessions. Why don't you just have an environment that has everything that you need or you like, instead of looking at something and saying, I hated that for years, but it's still there. My mother gave me, I inherited the painting that hung over our fireplace in my childhood home for years and years. So when I got it, I put it over the fireplace in my home. And I never liked it. I realized I never liked it. I could tell you exactly what it looks like, but I never liked it. So here was the center of my home. Every time I went to my living room, thanks, Mom, And finally, I said, I'm going to sell that painting and buy something that I like because it's not me. Where was it? Well, okay. But I guess it's going to the bottom. You don't lose the memory if you lose the item. I can very easily picture my childhood home. I can picture the painting over it. It brings me very happy memories. It did not bring me happy feelings when I was hanging my home. So you want to begin to enjoy other activities. It's a healthy environment, and it's exciting in your life because you're not burdened with your possessions. So this could be you. Carefree, enjoying a hike in the woods, reading a book, spending time with your grandchildren, joining a club, taking a bath, all that kind of stuff that you can do. Okay. So do you want to spend a few minutes on questions specific to downsizing? or go to the next one.
Do you guys have questions, or would you prefer to wait? Well, we can sum up at the end.
Okay. Let me just, and one thing, a lot of people ask me about photographs. What do you do with old photographs? Lots and lots of old photographs. First, I go through them all. If you have pictures of scenery, discard it. If you have a picture of the Eiffel Tower, that's scenery, discard it. If you have a picture of you in front of the Eiffel Tower, then the next thing you want to discard is anything where everyone in the picture doesn't look 100%. If one person has their eyes closed or is making a face or something, discard it. Because you certainly won't want somebody to hold on to a picture of you where you didn't look all that great. So you discard that. And then if you have someone who's willing to make them all digital, that's great. If not, then actually schedule an afternoon with your family. The Friday or the Saturday after Thanksgiving is a very good time. Order pizza, everyone sit around the dining room table, look through the photos, you take what you want, you take what you want, and then whatever is left you can discard. Because many, many people have boxes and boxes and bins of photos. Yeah.
But, okay, hold on. A lot of times you just don't want to throw it out. But what do you do with it? Throw it out?
Why don't you want to throw it out? Or why don't you want to dispose of it?
Not necessarily dispose of it, but throw it in the garbage. You know, I think rather than.
Well,
Does
Tracy,
anybody want, what could does anyone have use for this?
Tracy hit about, I'm going to hold on to it. I call that a house of mites. I might need this sometime. There might be somebody who could use this. You sort of have to put yourself first. I can't use it. You could donate it. Or you can dispose of it. One of the cardinal sins of organizing is taking your clutter and giving it to someone else. Because then the guilt's off of you, right? Oh, I didn't dispose of it. I didn't throw it out. I gave it to someone else. Now it's their problem. You know, if you don't have a need for it and it's not in a condition where you can donate it to a charity or something, then it served its purpose.
I had a couple of thousand feet of 8mm film,
Mm-hmm.
which I converted to DVDs.
Great.
We watched them once.
Mm-hmm.
The kids didn't watch them. They fell asleep during them. These are adult children.
Mm-hmm.
They're complete waste.
Yeah.
The other thing I do with, I had a lot of Kodachrome slides,
Mm-hmm.
and those have to be viewed through a ruler projector.
Yeah.
Those I converted into computer slides.
Very good. Well, you're ahead of time. Yeah, that's great.
You still don't look at them.
Yeah, that's true. You still don't look
Yes,
at
clutter.
You still don't look at them, you know. Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Peter?
You're welcome. Okay, so now I'd like to bring up, everything okay, Beth?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Beth Tofel, who is one of the founders of FootprintID, which is an awesome software package that I personally use and that our clients in Grand Family Planning have found extremely useful. And Miri Upton, who owns a few companies, but she's going to talk specifically today from the perspective of her organizing company, Mommies and Money. Okay. And Maria-Elena, I'm going to need to get the microphone. Oh, awesome. So let me take that.
So our presentation is a little bit interactive. We're going to give you instructions.
Interactive. I'm going to show you. Sure. So everybody.
It's probably going to be mostly yes or no, but if you want to do it true or false, you can
Flip it on.
Sure. You get dressed.
I'm not trying to be fresh. Okay, thank you.
Are you clicked? Are you going? Okay, so I think that before we start our, the interactive part, I'll just give you a 30-second overview of what FootprintID is, and then I'll do the same for FootprintID. Helps individuals manage, maintain, and always have access to their health and medical information, including document storage for test results, healthcare proxies, imaging, doctor's notes, anything that you might want to put in there. And it is an extremely user-friendly interface. It's done through a web portal. There's a smartphone app, and we also have a 24-hour call center. With the gaps in health information sharing and the nature of our healthcare system being a bit fractured at the moment, this is a solution for a lot of the problems that exist because of that lack of information sharing. Many of our doctors have their own portals, and we might be able to log on and look at our information or get it in some way from there, but none of them talk to each other. So this helps us manage our own healthcare, that of whether it will work to manage again a parent, a child, or anyone in the family.
So adding on to what Beth said, my name is Miri, and I'm the founder of Mommies and Money. And after seeing clients come in with boxes of stuff and not knowing what to do with it, where to put it, what should be stored, what doesn't need to be stored, who should they speak to about it, I decided to create a company where I can help families really plan for getting someone like Maria-Elena to come in to get rid of all of the stuff. I help to go through all of the paperwork, and have found that, you know, a lot of people are very nervous, rightfully so, because of security reasons and proper disposal and all of those things. So it's a bit of a passion that I have, and Beth and I wanted to do this in a more interactive way, because it's one of those things where, you know, we can talk to you about what you need to do, what you don't need to do, but kind of jogging your mind and saying, okay, what do you think? And how your own experiences. So, would you like to go first? Okay. So question number 1. If you are rushed to the hospital, do the emergency staff have access to your medical information and health history in order to treat you most effectively? Yes or no?
So it's easy.
I know, you know what I mean.
My question though is, what hospital? Okay.
You said
Any.
Yeah.
Any.
Okay.
Any. So that's a big part of the question. Any. You could be near your home when you need to be rushed to the hospital. You could be visiting someone outside of the town. So that's a very important point in purpose of this question. So what do you say?
Universal hospitals.
No.
Yes.
Online, yes.
Any hospital, no. One hospital, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Here's the answer to the question. It is no. Yes, if you have visited a hospital previously, they will have a record of what you were there for the last time, how they treated you, and the information that you gave them. But anywhere else, absolutely not. And the first responders don't have any information either when they come in an emergency situation and they're treating you on the way to the hospital. So that is a very big problem that people are not aware of.
So, do you know where all of your important documents are? Do you know where all of your important documents are?
I do, but no one else does.
Yes, bingo. Do you know, or you?
I need my glasses
Okay.
so that I can see.
So a lot of times what we find is one person, or maybe two people know where important documents are. But if something happens to that person, they're unable to communicate where they are. So one of the things that I found that was very useful is to help my clients come up with a conversation, to speak with a family member, someone, a friend, a neighbor, someone that they trust to say, here's where everything is.
Okay, can your children or caregiver access your medical and health information?
Can you caregiver? So
You have
my
one?
wife?
Exactly, whoever it is that's assisted, okay.
Children and my wife.
Okay. So the answer is yes, if you've given them the information, and no under any other circumstance. Because the HIPAA laws prohibit doctors from sharing your information with anybody unless they have written permission. So one of the benefits of a service or product like FootprintID, going back, that while we follow the HIPAA guidelines, because we are very concerned, as much as you are, with privacy and security, we're not HIPAA bound, we're HIPAA compliant because you're choosing to utilize a service like that. And what it does is it gives you the ability to make sure at any time that whomever is involved in your care can have access when they need it and have the information immediately available to them. And you don't need to worry about HIPAA. I'm going to give you an example that is related more toward an 18-year-old, but we have many, many members and we work with a number of organizations that work with parents of college students. And the reason is they want their children to have FootprintID because this way it's on their phone and so is their healthcare proxy. Because you know how many times a parent has been called? Hi, your child's had an accident, is in the emergency room. Oh my God, what's the matter? We can't tell you, you'll have to come here to find out. Imagine that feeling.
And bring your HIPAA release.
Exactly. So again, by having everything portable and mobile, like the society that we live in, and making sure that you have these records that are easily accessible, you can make sure that you or your loved ones have the access is there so that the most effective and efficient care can be taken care of, and be provided.
So this could be another trick question. Does a family member or friend know how to access the documents or where they are? So it's kind of a mixed bag in the room. I think the no's take it. This is something that's extremely important, and I've seen it as I've worked with clients throughout the years where they'll tell me where stuff is, and I'll say, well, you gotta tell someone else, and it's like, no, I don't like this one, and I don't like that one, and this one I don't trust, and I've run into it where I'm done unexpectedly, and when she passed, the niece and nephew that I knew she did not like wanted to know where everything was. And I knew where everything was, but I knew with having all of her information that they were not the ones that were going to be receiving that information, nor did she want that information disclosed to them because they were not trustworthy. So it's really important that you speak to someone and just let them know. No one needs to know how much you have or what you're leaving to what organizations or what family members or what friends or your daughter whatever the case may be, but just so that they know where things are, because again, in that time of crisis, when someone passes away, you don't want to have to be panicking, saying, okay, well, you know what, we need to turn off their social security payments. Passwords, you know, there's a lot of information that's online that you want to be able to know that you're protected for that person as well as the family.
Okay, have you ever had a duplicate test done? A lab test, a radiology test?
Like blood work on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
well, a duplicate meaning that they needed to do it because they didn't have your prior test results. And so you're seeing a second doctor, getting another opinion, whatever the case.
Like a tetanus, who knows when they had the last tetanus shot?
Exactly. Good example.
I do too, but
If I have a blood test, and I go to a strange doctor, I would give them a copy of the blood test. So as long as I have it,
To my point, correct, as long as you have it. But have you ever had a situation where you haven't, you said yes or
then
no? You said yes?
I think I forgot what the question.
Have you ever had a duplicate test done because
Oh,
of
yeah.
lack of
Yes.
prior test results? Okay, so what does this do? Cost you money,
Suppose it's your extra radiation.
extra
perhaps.
radiation. Statistics are that 1 in 5 radiology tests are actually duplicates because of a lack of prior test results. By having some way that you manage and keep your test results, at some point in one's lifetime, and maybe multiple times, you will spare yourself that extra radiology, the extra costs of whatever copay or whatever that is that's related to it. And the doctor's costs.
So you go in, you go to the doctor and you get a tetanus shot because you stepped on a rusty nail. And how do you get that? Do I, the patron or the customer
Yes.
of FootprintID, go in and say, I got a tetanus shot, and
So-
I put that in the app?
Correct. So our template is user friendly. It basically looks like a screen that says name, first name, last name. It leads you through the entire process. And we have 10 pre-formed templates. One of them is immunizations. Drop down menu, what date, what immunization, and we have everything listed. So it's a kind of a quick and easy to use way to keep track. And you can also, if you choose to upload a document related to it, you can put that in the storage section. But this way, the next time that you step on a rusty nail, you can say to the doctor, I had a tetanus shot, 28 months ago, or whatever it is. Is that still valid, or is it going to address this, or do I need another one? Because if you don't know when you have it, you're definitely getting another one.
How does somebody else know that where it is?
Okay,
Ah,
so
great
good
question.
question. I was going to get to that, and I'm glad that you brought it up. When somebody becomes a member, they get a membership card that has an assigned membership number that we assign. That number can only be used to read or see your information. We tell people to put the membership card in, oh, look, you're pulling up the app.
Yes.
So
I'm revealing my privileged information.
So we tell people to carry that membership card next to their driver's license in their wallet, because in an emergency, that's the first place that first responders train to look for your identification. In most cases, somebody is able to tell someone, either yourselves or someone that you're with, their FootprintID number, so they can call the 800 number, your membership number, and get the information. They can look on your phone through the app, they can log in through web browser. With that number, they cannot change any information. We did that because we wanted to make sure that nobody's information could be randomly polluted. So in order to change your information, you have to log in with a username and password.
Anybody with that number number to access.
Correct. So if you lost your card, you would call our 800 number, we would turn off that account immediately and assign you a new number and transfer the information over. And I'm going to address that question because it is a concern. And I like to talk about risk versus reward. The truth is, nobody cares if you're allergic to penicillin. It's not worth anything to anyone who might want to steal that information. I'm just using that as an example. But the treating first responder, or when you're visiting a new doctor and they're prescribing you medication, they need to know. So there's a much greater reward in having the information. You know, in times of crisis, and we're all talking about that a little bit, it doesn't even matter if you know off the top of your head what prescription to take, because you won't when you're in a stressful situation. None of us do. It's just human nature. We don't remember details like that because of the stress. So yes, if someone stole your wallet, and in the time between when you noticed it and that happened and you noticed it, somebody happened to look at your medical information, I would say, okay, that's your risk. And that's the risk with this whole process. But what's the value to them? We don't store social security numbers, we don't store financial information. So we kind of took the things that people really want to find out of the equation. For exactly this reason, because the value, you can also lock the app. You can lock the app, but you can't stop somebody from, if they have your membership card, getting in, at least for, no different than you can't stop someone from using a credit card for searching for to increase your wallets and so on. Same concept, and I appreciate it.
I guess it would depend on how it's supporting identity theft, that information.
Without a social security number, it's meaningless.
Is there a data code?
There is a slot for it.
You don't
It's
have to
not
populate
mandatory. It's not a mandatory field.
Gotcha.
So if you take social security information, financial information, and birthday out of the equation, anyone could look at a piece of mail that has your name and address on it. It's not
Insurance number.
if you want to. We have a place that you can put it, and most people do, but it's a choice. Yes.
Well, and then they're changing.
They're changing that because it is probably one of the dumbest things that that has ever existed in terms of yes.
But do hospitals actually go to that?
Well, they will if you tell them. I can tell you that one of the aha moments for me in all this was when my brother at the age of 43 had a massive heart attack. And I'm the first to say they were going to do whatever they had to do to save his life. And they put him on the table. He was divorced. He was rushed to the hospital. He was with a friend who knew nothing about anything. When I got to the hospital, there was such an identifiable relief on the doctor's face because I was able to tell him, this is what my brother takes for medications. This is what he's allergic to, and this is our family history. And don't ask me why I knew. I just did. I'm a girl, I have 2 brothers, I don't know, maybe that's what. But the reality is that it makes their job harder. So will they respect the information? Absolutely. And if you are having chest pains and you go and have an EKG done, an EKG is really only as good as comparing it to your prior EKG because we all have abnormalities. So unless you're having a massive heart attack and there's, it's very obvious, without them knowing what your prior EKG looks like, which is why we say you should have the last EKG in the records, you may end up being treated for an abnormality that is not really an abnormality for you. It's normal. So those are examples of some things where it can help.
So continuing on, talking on having access to information and continuing on your question, should everyone have access to all of your information? That's an easy one. That's a giveaway. You save the best for last. So it's true. It's bouncing off like what Beth said and what you had mentioned in regards to information. No, medical needs all of your information. There's certain things, going to the Medicare, changing their guidelines. I know my dad's social because that was what we had for his ID card growing up. So it's in my mind. It's always there, and if I had to spew it out, I could spew it and have no problem. My mom's had no idea what her social is. But knowing identifying events, dates of birth, things like that, where if there was some kind of emergency where we had access on the document side, I have that written information. So something like that.
Have you ever visited a doctor while you were away from home?
Yes.
What do you know about it? You said no?
Just what you know. Yeah.
Nothing.
What you're able to tell them.
What you're able to tell them.
I was very fortunate, the doctor had a very severe eye problem. And I had a Sunday, I had to find a doctor in California. And I did. I'd never seen the problem I had seen before. And he was able to communicate with my doctor, Dr. Maria-Elena in New Jersey, by fax, sending back data, Christmas, 20 years, sending data back and forth by fax and to get my treatment. So I was fortunate about it.
So you had a nice doctor who was willing to answer calls on Sunday and communicate back 20 years ago when doctors were doing that. And so
That was very fortunate.
right. And, unfortunately, medicine has changed so dramatically that most of the time you won't find that, but you were very fortunate. Had Dr. DeLaRusso not been available, it had potential to be a much more difficult situation for you because you didn't have any information about, from a clinical side, as to what the treatments that you had been previously.
That would be true for anybody that had like a rare occurrence, but even
Correct.
it was very rare problem.
Right, we hadn't seen it before. And that also leads to something else that's going on in medicine today, which is Dr. DeLaRusso wouldn't be there anymore because there are 20 urgent care centers available for all their patients that they can say, well, go to the urgent care center. Hopefully not the emergency room because we'll wait for 6 hours. But urgent care centers also have, if it's off hours, they don't have any information. So again, really what a lot of this is about is that what's percolating, and I'm using that word because there's actually an article a few days ago that I read about, is that it's not that the medical community is now going to have to start to adapt to the fact that patients are bringing their own data to appointments because that is the only way that they can be sure that a doctor or any type of clinician has the accurate information and the information that they need to properly treat them. So there's kind of a shift in people in the ownership, the onus, and it's actually a benefit to all of us because we need to be self-empowered and advocate for ourselves and know that that we're being treated properly.
So do all of you have a trusted advisor or advisors? Well, talking about,
Finance or medical?
well, it could be on multiple levels. It could be on the finance side, it could be on the medical side. Attorneys, accountants, financial professionals, a banker. I think everyone almost everyone had a yes up. Oh, you have a no. So there's a couple of no's. So it's really important that as individuals and as you are aging, whatever the age is, whether you're young and starting out or whether you're in that end of life phases, you really need trusted advisors, someone that you can talk to and get that advice as to how to proceed with whatever the case may be. I had a client years ago that finished their trust work, and a couple of days after it was signed, he wound up having a stroke. And the son called and said, well, this is what happened. And we were fortunate enough that, again, talk about medical staff that was extremely helpful. I said, is he coherent? Yes. Okay. Can he sign? We think so. I said, can you, I can fax stuff back and forth. We got permission from the nurses to give information back and forth. So we knew what his plans were to move things into a trust. And we were fortunate enough that we were able to provide the service that he needed, because it could have gone a total other way if, remember when the trust wasn't signed, it was signed, but if he didn't have his children that knew what his wishes were, his wife that knew what his wishes were, as well as the attorney, and then having, again, the staff in the hospital being nice enough that, in a critical floor, they were faxing stuff to us, we were faxing stuff to them. So, it all comes down to really having those people to bounce ideas off of. I mean, even on a personal and professional level. If you're in a business, I'm sure, Maria-Elena also, you're working with other organizers, you might find something or hear something, she'll talk to other organizers and get their idea, well, what do you think about this? Or I have a challenging client. How do you think, how do I do this? So really having those trusted advisors, whomever they are, find someone and really, get to know them and let them get to know you as well.
So I just want to add something to what Miri just said, which you probably covered when Steve did his class. But I recently had an experience with both a friend and a FootprintID member whose father was critically ill, and the adult children were fighting about what his wishes were. And luckily, they had a copy of his advance directive, and it eliminated a lot of issues. So I'm sure that was something that I spoke quite a bit about, but by having that document easily accessible and taking it to the next step and having it, you were faxing that when you were doing that, and had it been completed, it being in something that you can easily access wherever you are, can eliminate a lot of emotional, a lot of stress during a very stressful time. I'm going to skip my next two questions because we talked about them by virtue, which was, can you save money by having always access to your information? And can a doctor speak to anyone else about your information without your permission? So my last question is, do you keep a list of your medications on hand at all times? And yes, and some people might. Okay, in your wallet. What happens if you leave your wallet in your pants and they go in the washing machine? Okay, so again, we're moving from the days of paper, which is where we were, to digital. And the reason for that is because if you have that piece of paper, or, for any of us, if we kept it in our desk drawer, you could tell, 100 friends, my list of prescriptions in my desk drawer, but it doesn't really mean anything when nobody's home in your desk drawer and there's, a need for the information, especially when it's critical. And when there's one copy of something, if it goes through the washing machine, it's over. And you're scratching it out when you change, when something changes, you're crossing this out. By digitizing and having it just makes it much easier to efficiently keep the information and have it when and where you need it.
You typically sign up for 1 year. Is it an annual thing?
It's an annual, so our pricing is $40 for the first member for the first year, and a $25 annual renewal. So
And for additional members,
we charge $30 for the first year for the additional member on the account, and then everyone is a $25 a year.
it's a great idea.
It's, we were passionate about keeping this at a price point that we could really work with, a good majority of the population. This to us is just a core, something that's so much at the root of us managing our lives. We want it to be available.
You're based in New Jersey?
But we do so much. And we sell both to individuals and through businesses as an added value and complete benefit to organizations.
That's good. Do the medical practices today that are using computers work with any kind of standardized information?
No. Hence,
Because I know I go to my GP's website and I can put up all my tests,
correct,
going back for years.
correct.
And if I go to a new doctor, can he send that electronically to you?
The answer is capital N, capital O. And it is probably one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest conversations in healthcare management nationally today. And the goal is they would love to have a national database. The hard work is really ahead of us because everybody recognizes the issues and that we spoke about today. There is so much involved in, and I think that there will be a lot of questions and a lot of issues around it concerning privacy. Additionally, we have about 10 major companies in the space of the electronic medical record, which is what your GP has and what it uses. And while they would like to standardize the information and be able to sync it all, at least what they say, for those of us who've been around long enough, we know the big business is what controls everything. And if they do that, 9 of those 10 big players are going to be out of business. So they might say that they'd like to do it, and ultimately I hope that we do in some way that benefits everybody, but I think it's a long time over. They don't talk to each other.
In my case, I can download my information.
Correct.
I can have it at hand.
Correct.
Is that standard with other medical practices?
Most medical practices have a system that, yes, you can go into and get your information, but there's no way to create a central repository outside of utilizing some type of tool similar to ours.
I guess it's up to me to keep my information.
Exactly. And there, Epic is one of the biggest electronic medical record companies. They're trying to do things where, they even have multiple systems even within their company. So one doctor might use Epic and they have system A, another might use Epic and they have system B. They're working now, I think the first step is that if you use Epic, maybe they can find a way to standardize things and share information. But there's just no normal out there. There's no standard. And so they are all silos.
So it's up to me.
It's up to you. Exactly. You had a question as well.
No,
Okay.
but again, it's true, every specialist that I go to has a different, EMR
Correct.
than,
Exactly.
it's really different.
Correct. Which, as a result, puts the burden and the onus on all of us to be responsible for our own information. And make it known.
Does your service coordinate, like if I said to you, okay, here's the 5 databases and the 5 doctors? Or how does that?
It is all consumer centric, and you have to do it because they don't download it. as, there's something called an API,
I
which is
understand what
something
you're
that
saying.
talks
They don't
to.
interface.
Right, okay. So as interfaces become available, which they are starting to for certain systems, we will add them so that if you use this, that your doctor as a system, it will be able to download directly to ours. But there's no standardization of the way the information is documented, reported with all these systems, which is what the major challenge is. And there was a statistic that I recently read that 1 in, I think it was 8 hospital records are duplicates. And that the cost of that, might be $1.50 per record, but now multiply that by the number of records okay, so if even within a hospital, there are duplicate records because they couldn't figure out that this was the same patient. Now let's talk about taking crazy stuff.
So my last question, again, a little bit of a trick question. Is a safe deposit box safe to store all of your documents?
Save if you have access.
Bingo!
Safe, but not accessible.
Right.
So yeah, so it is
That's
safe,
the trick.
but once someone passes away, if there's no second signer on it, you're not getting access to it. And if your only copy of your will is in there, you're gonna have to go to court to assign. It's not power of attorney, it's power of attorney is gone when the person passes, but a court appointed person to access that safe deposit box. I recommend that people do put things in the safe deposit box, jewelry, things, documents as well, but make sure that you have a signed copy somewhere in your house, like your safe, that's bolted down. Make sure someone knows where it is, how to access it. If there's a code, that someone knows the code. And just really, it's a matter of talking to a family or a friend or someone that's trusted that you can make sure that your wishes are honored as you move through. Any questions?
I read just the other day that services like yours are even more important in the wake of like the hurricanes and the disasters.
That's
Because
very,
all those people lost all their medical records, anything that they stored throughout their
I'm glad
house.
that you brought that up. There were a lot of calls into, I remember watching Anderson Cooper report from Texas. Someone called in and said, my father is 84, he has a medical condition, he's wandering the streets. He doesn't know anything about any of his stuff. No way to help him. We have seen with the hurricanes, the earthquakes, all of these things, we can do a great job setting up these triage centers. We can do a great job bringing in the medications and, health and medical supplies that people need. But if nobody knows what you need, that's not a time that you're remembering. Yeah, maybe you'll remember something, but it's a really great point. And sadly, we're living in a time where we're seeing a lot of natural disasters. One of the other things I do want to add is that to that, and we actually, our smartphone app, if you do not have an internet connection, everything except your documents is still available on your phone. So your templates, you took it off. but
I can go back to it.
All of the basic information, including conditions, allergies, prescriptions, and things, if you've had surgeries or things like that, that is still there. It's just your documents that we don't store on your phone because we blow up your.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So these are my documents. All right. So I on the server I have my healthcare proxy, my POA, and the attorney of record. So if where I go, all right, that they don't accept the electronic version of my documents, my attorney of record is also stored there, so they can call that attorney and get bona fide copies of those documents as well. So, and I can't tell you how many times I've been in this situation. My husband had a healthcare crisis this year. And when he's in the emergency room and they're taking our data, and the nurse asks my husband, "Do you have advanced directives?" And he's like, hamana. And I was like, "Yes, he does." And she looked at me like, "What?" Because she never gets that answer. I said, "Would you like to see them?" Sure. Well, I mean, it's most people don't have this, but it's so vitally important. Another thing that I use FootprintID for is my husband's medications. When he got sick, initially, when he first got out of the hospital, he was on 12 different medications. And whenever we would go to a doctor's office, he would like, "Trace, you got my medications?" And I was like, "I had it on my phone, so I could just show it to the doctor." And then there was this is not FootprintID, but my husband was on IV antibiotics for 20 weeks. And every time we went to the infectious disease doctor, we had to, most of the time they had not received his blood test results from the lab. So he could not make an informed decision about whether or not to continue his therapy. So I got to the point where I would, as soon as the blood test results were received by the lab, they would email them to me. I would grab the file and have it with me. So when we went to see the doctors, like, "Here, how is he doing?" Okay. And this is,
Right, and you could have uploaded into documents for exactly.
Right. But to rely on the doctors and their staff to manage that stuff.
They don't have the time. They have an average of 6 minutes per patient is the statistics now. And they can't even afford to, they made choices of electronic medical record systems, and they're very expensive. They were crushing to their bottom line. They had to train their staff, and many of them, having not known anything about it, made their first choice and now realize they prefer to have something else. So the time that their staff has, they spend more time doing administrative work to fulfill their obligations than they do actually, in many cases, with the patient.
So then this is a really nice way of being able to carry my husband's medical information. And my situation is that I don't have children, but I have a niece, and she is our alternative. So if something happens to my husband and he's not there to speak for me, my niece can. And she has our FootprintID member numbers. She doesn't need to know what my medications are. She doesn't need to know what my assets are. She doesn't need to know where my safe deposit box key is. All she needs are those two numbers. And she can log into our information on her smartphone. She can answer all those questions that she doesn't know the answer to off the top of her head, and she can prove that she has authority to speak for us because she's on our healthcare proxies. She has access to that information if she needs it. But if she doesn't need it, she doesn't have to care.
I think what we're seeing, to your point of the doctor being appreciative of, the advanced directive and blood test results, doctors are becoming much more grateful for patients who do come in and do know what their information is and does have it available. We actually had a member recently, his husband, they found a lesion on his kidney, which was not what they were treating him for. He was having some other situation. It turned out it was malignant, and they were very fortunate that they found it very, very early on. He's 40 years old. He will be fine. But had he not had this other ailment, they wouldn't have found it. They then went on this kind of medical journey. I think they saw 12 different doctors in the next month. And she actually sent a note to us saying how much having the ability to just keep this repository and share it with the doctors so that they started off ahead of the game. They didn't have to go through the whole thing over and over again
and how much of a difference it made during this crisis that they were dealing with. So, it's
Besides the data that you store in the templates, you have a way of storing other files. I send you my will.
you can upload your will.
Upload my will and my own.
We give everybody unlimited document storage, so that document,
Okay, we're electronically beyond the answer.
you can put whatever you want in there. Thank you, everyone.
Very good, thank you.
So what do you think? You ready?
Great stuff.
Okay, do you guys have questions for our presenters?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
What kind of
That's it.
what kind of places are out there where you can donate stuff?
There are so many places.
You know, Big Brother, you get the things in
So
the
many places, there's lots of charities. There are someone with this Vietnam veterans where you can actually just put it on your porch and they tell you there's a day that the truck is coming by.
I've done it so many times, it's fabulous.
It is, it's absolutely fabulous. There are Goodwill, Salvation Army, that would come with the truck. That's not a problem, finding a place. So whatever women's shelters, whatever charity is near and dear to your heart, they have, they accept those. Even cars, boats.
Salvation Army is good. In fact, they also help you move the furniture that you want to get rid of.
They do. The Salvation Army will bring a crew, so if you can't get it to your porch, they'll get it.
The nice thing about Vietnam Vets also is that when you fill out what you're donating, they actually leave you a slip for your tax deduction so that you have it right there. They print it off, it's there, you just put it in the file and it's easily available to show your contributions or.
Does anybody take big stuff? Like I know they take bags of clothing and things like that, but like big pieces of furniture. They'll come and is it Salvation Army?
Yes, yes. I have another resource also that a lot of people don't know about. It's called Christina.org. It's CRISTINA. If you have, it's great for getting rid of old technology. They will find people who need your old computers and stuff like that. TVs they won't take though, because everyone's getting rid of their CRT TVs, and there's a huge glut of those, so they're not interested. But if you have a reasonably modern computer that no longer serves you and you want to get rid of it, they will find a school or a shelter or the places where they do teaching on used equipment, and that's a really great way to get rid of a computer that's. Yeah. And absolutely. You want to make sure that you like that drive. Yeah, good. It's always a good idea to just like wipe it and put back the original operating system. Get rid of that stuff. But yeah. It's CR, no H. It's Christina's on. Yeah. I had a Mac that I donated to the women's shelter in my town. That was good. That was a really that made me feel great, and it was so much so good. So.
And if you want to sign up for a free call, we can talk, because lots of times people that have worked with someone like me who transforms their space, and there's questions about the process and how it all works and everything, and I'd like to talk to you about it. Get started.
And just as someone who has used a professional organizer myself, I can tell you that for many years I put it off. And I have an office in my home, and I have now been there for 15 years. And so as of 2 years ago, I had 3 different businesses, and I taught a bunch of different courses, and I had so much crap in that office. I couldn't breathe. I would start to hyperventilate every time I went into my office. I stopped working in my office. I would take my laptop out into the dining room just so I wouldn't have to deal with the office. Yeah. So I finally I finally had, there was a lovely person who lived in my town, she was a professional organizer, yes. who came into my office and helped me get rid of all of my extraneous stuff. It's so liberating. It is such a great feeling. And now when I walk into my office, I'm actually proud. You know, when people come over, it's like, look at what we did, you know, and you know, it's my stuff has places for everything. And once that gets done, it's also easier to keep your environments organized because you know where all the stuff should be, right? And you're less inclined to be sloppy about it. I mean, is my office perfect? No. I mean, I do have piles of stuff, and I periodically go through it though, because now I know where the stuff should be.
And that's what professional organizers do. They give you solutions. I just come encourage. Give you solutions. That keeps you organized.
And another thing that this organizer did for me was like she would hold something up and say, do you want to get rid of it or do you want to keep or toss? And she sort of like I like reach for it, she'd let me have it back. But if I was like, there's okay, toss, so by the organizer holding that thing
rather than you,
it's a lot. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to get rid of. So
I was just going to say that one of the questions that just through my own networking experiences and speaking to some organizers, one of the questions that they say to ask yourself is, does this item bring you joy? If it doesn't bring you joy, then there's no reason to keep it. Right?
If it brings you guilt, discard it.
Yes. Another one that I've heard that I really like is it an asset or an anchor? Is it enriching you? Is it enriching your life, or is it dragging you down?
Yeah, and this is just an item. It's just something. It's a thing. But it brings us guilt, it brings us anger, it brings us joy. So you have to assess that. If it was a negative person in your life, you would get them out of your life. Right? You always say, get rid of all the people who are bringing negative energy into your life, or get rid of all the items that are bringing negative energy.
Well, I've got another one. My mom, when my mom couldn't go back to her apartment in Florida, I had to get rid of all of her stuff. It was not a pleasant experience. And one of her angers, she had a portrait that was painted of her older sister Sylvia in the 60s. It is a very kitschy portrait, or was a very kitschy portrait. She looked stunning, but it was very, very stylized. It was very of its time. It was painted, I believe, in 1966. And the reason my mother had it was at my aunt's funeral, my cousin saw the painting and said, "Oh my God, what if her husband's kids, it was her second marriage, get a hold of that painting, they're going to use it for target practice." And I went over to my mom and I said, "Mom, what do you think? You want to take Sylvia's portrait?" And she's like, "Sure, I'll take it." She put it up in her living room. And it always made me smile, I can show you, I have a picture of it, and it's hilarious. But when it was time for me to clear out my mom's apartment, what do I do with Sylvia? Right, now Sylvia's gone, and I contacted her kids, and I'm like, all right, this is your last opportunity, and none of them wanted it. So I took some photographs of it, and it went.
And that's a very effective method. You take a photograph.
Yes, and the thing was that I saw these cousins at a funeral a couple of years later, and I showed them the photograph of the portrait, like, "Oh my God, you gotta send that to me." So they were very excited about having a digital representation of it. They just didn't want the actual painting. So, and it's something to think about. When there are things that you're reluctant to give up, snap a picture. But don't.
Just the photo evokes the same emotion as an item.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this session. Let's have a round of applause for Maria-Elena. Miri and Beth. And if you guys have any questions about any of the solutions that you heard about today, or if something comes up where you would like to get more information, remember grandfamilyplanning.com, and you all have my email, so you can contact any one of our partners, and everyone will be back on the 17th, hopefully, if they can possibly make it. So next week's session is going to be to move or not to move. So I hope to see everybody at that session. And thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Facebook.
Bye-bye.